Alright, Maelstrom Reverse is here, the first reverse unit in D series, and I'm definitely excited. Just a little disappointed that all the support is only for the reverse one only, as a spoiler, so let's begin. So anyway, we started with the Blue Storm Karma Dragon Maelstrom Reverse, which is a grade 3 with 30 power, and the skill is Count Vanguard. During turn, all your units get plus 5 key power for each of your lock cards, and how you could get it is through the third skill, where Auto Vanguard, at the end of battle that your rear guard attack, you may lock that unit. And yes, you can lock even after the column swapping. And as a reminder, all your self-lock units are going to unlock at the end phase of your turn. But basically, it helps out with the powerful attacks because a lot of solo small pokes when it comes to Aqua Force. And essentially, is more attacks you do, the stronger your units get. And then moving on to the second skill, Act Vanguard once per turn costs Soul Blast 1. Choose one of your rear guards says Aqua Force or Tear Dragon, and it gets this skill into the end of turn. Auto rear guard at the end of battle of this unit attack, if it was the first battle of the turn, costs either Counter Blast 1 or Soul Blast 1 Maelstrom, and then choose one of your rear guards and exchange positions with this unit. So this is a bit of an upgrade or downgrade depending on how you like to see it, because the original form lets you re-stand the same rear guard, while this one requires you to basically swap positions with another unit, requiring another card practically. Although the original one requires you to discard a card anyway, so technically it's kind of the same, but this one requires you to Soul Blast to give it the ability, along with either a Counter Blast or additional Soul Blast with a Maelstrom. So there are a bit ups and downs here, but when it comes to timing, it could be considered a little better, especially if you're trying to combo it with something like Tidal Assault, but a little worse that it's actually a little more costed than the original form. In which the final skill is Auto Vanguard. When this card attacks, if it's at least the 4th battle turn, you draw a card and choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. And then if you have at least 4 damage or you persona during the turn, crit +1 into the end of the battle. So in a way, it references the original Reverse Maelstrom along with the V1, combining it with a bit of D, because giving a multi-attack skill is essentially the D1, but when it comes to the power and the crit and the retire and draw, that's typical Maelstrom. The only thing is, I kind of prefer it where it makes your opponent need to think about guarding or not. The original and the V1 requires you to basically, if your opponent decides to guard it and doesn't hit, you can do the retire and draw that way while you still get the power and crit. To kind of make it in a scenario to whether you want to take 2 damage in the face or one of your allies must die while your opponent gets to draw. So I kind of already missed that part when it comes to the original Maelstrom Reverse, but the part where it's basically lock and then get more power after attacking is essentially a V Maelstrom thing. And overall, it's not too bad, but it does feel a little bit overcosted. But one upside is definitely not requiring the original base form Maelstrom, because that is something that Glory needs, and that is something at least this doesn't need, and it doesn't even need Blue Storm Armada, which is another thing. So you could actually run less bricks, which is actually a huge side about this card. But when it comes to resources, this one could actually end up being short of sometimes in comparison to Glory Maelstrom. And also, Glory Maelstrom has a little more draw power, as you could actually get the retire and draw more than once a turn. But still, overall, I like it, since it's still power and it definitely pressures your opponent, and technically be considered a separate deck. And now to the support, starting with Tier Knight Stolfi, which is grade 2 with taking power on the skills Auto Rear Guard. When this card attacks a Vanguard, if your Vanguard is at least a grade 3 Maelstrom and it's the 4th attack during the turn, cost Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's front row rear guards and retire it. Timing might be really bad anyway because it requires the 4th attack, and by then your opponent might already intercept with it as well. If it was the first attack, it would have been much better. And then we go to Astoria Assault, which is a grade 2 with taking power on the skills Count. If your Vanguard is Aqua Force, this card also belongs to Aqua Force, which is very helpful. Just wish they brought back encounter stuff instead. In which the second skill is Auto Drop. When you play a Blue Storm Armada card from your hand and you put it to the order zone while your Vanguard is the Maelstrom Reverse, and you don't have a copy of this on rear guard, costs Soul Blast 1, calls as rear guard, and it gets plus 5 power in turn, which is a pretty nice recovery option, I would say. Although you already saw that Maelstrom Reverse does use Soul, and on top of other cards, you could actually need to watch out for Soul. In which the last skill is Count Rear Guard Guardian during your opponent's turn. If this unit was unlocked during the previous turn, this unit can intercept from the back row and also plus 5k shield, which can be pretty nice as recovery, which isn't too bad being a 10k shield intercept from the back row and also being a recovery card. So I could say you could technically tech this in, although you might have more important cards to run just for your multi-attack. And then we go to Vicious Brave Shooter, which is grade 2 with empowering the skills Count. If your Vanguard is Aqua Force, it also becomes Aqua Force, and then if your Vanguard is a Maelstrom Reverse, it gets all the following. Auto Rear Guard. When this card attacks, this card gets us 5k power in battle, and at the end battle, cost Counter Blast 1, choose one of your other rear guards and exchange positions with this unit. And yes, yes, after you exchange this, you can actually lock, which once again, it's more options for your column swapping and more multi-attack, although you got a searcher that might do the same exact thing on top of the added search, which might be better than the 5k power buff in my opinion. And then finally to our last card, which I thought was going to be the main highlight card, Armored Gas Dragon, which is great too with 10 power on the skill list. Auto, when placed on rear guard, choose a Blue Storm Dragon Maelstrom Reverse from your right deck, reveal it, and if either that or your Vanguard is Maelstrom Reverse, costs energy plus 3 and perform on the following. Choose a unit with great less than or equal to your Vanguard, that is Aqua Force or Tear Dragon from your drop and call it to rear guard, or choose a Blue Storm Armada card from your drop zone and put it to your hand. This card would have been so good if it wasn't Maelstrom Reverse locked, just for more options for Maelstrom in general. But for what it can do for Maelstrom Reverse, definitely pretty good, especially when it comes to recovery options. With the second skill, we'll count Rearguard Guardian. If your Vanguard is at least a grade 3 Vanguard Maelstrom plus 5k power and 5k shield, active on your opponent's turn as well. Big beater that can also recover, most importantly the recovery, so definitely a must play when it comes to Maelstrom Reverse, especially since the deck doesn't really use too much energy, unless if you're playing Cutlass. But Cutlass will definitely be less used when it comes to the Energy Blast 3 skill when it comes to Maelstrom Reverse, as there's less discardability when it comes to Maelstrom Reverse. But it's a must play when it comes to Maelstrom Reverse. And finally, here's the secret rare, which looks pretty awesome, although I would have loved the reverse aesthetic like the original secret rares that they did in V. But hopefully they do remake it as the actual printing. And then finally next week we got a bunch of promos, this time with also a Drajul promo which I'm excited for. Just hope it's not another standing rearguard that also gives you a draw. And so that's it for the new Maelstrom Reverse, which was a very surprise reveal, that also being the first reverse unit shown in D series. What do you guys think of it? As a separate deck to regular Maelstrom with Glory Maelstrom, definitely pretty decent. Even though it's a bit more overcosted compared to Glory Maelstrom, there is the upside that you can run less weird cards. Less base form Maelstroms, less Blue Storm Armadas, which could be a huge big deal depending on the player. As its own standalone deck, I would say Glory is still technically better just because of the amount of draw power it can do, and essentially the recovery it could do in comparison to this one. And also this design is making me miss the old version of Maelstrom Reverse, where it makes your opponent need to think whether to get hit with 2 damage or let the rearguard die. But still, regardless, pretty decent since you still get the power and the crit and still get the retire regardless of your opponent's decision. But on that, that's it for this, and see you all next time.